when I talked the first time, when Bob kind of gave me the parameters, and I tried to cover my whole year or my whole time in Barbershop, which is in next month when I join, it'll be 49 years. And so, but one of the things I thought might be interesting to you guys is I've sung in so many quartets. I have 4 name tags on. Of part of them, I've sung in about 12 quartets, but I could only find 4 name tags. So what I thought I'd do is kind of go through the history of my quartetting and who I sang with, and hopefully that'll be of some interest because a lot of you old timers will know some of these names. Some of the young guys won't know.
This is a memory test. Right?
This is a memory test. So I started quartetting in 1972 in a basement in Bloomington with Keith Franzen singing tenor, Brian Berg singing baritone, and Gene Teetsy singing bass. We never had a name. We were going to sing at the Bloomington Convention in '72 at the Afterglow around the hospitality rooms, and we never did because Brian Berg got cold feet and didn't show up. So there was just the 3 of us. So then, also that year, then I was invited to try out for the Red Barons. Their lead had dropped out, and so I sang one night with Jim Foy, Jim Richards, and Ken Agri, and I was accepted as their new lead, and then they broke up 3 o'clock in the morning, and they sat and talked and decided they weren't going to keep going. So I was a Red Baron for 2 or 3 hours. So then in '73, I got together with Jim Hall, Bob Brutzman, and I didn't have his name down, darn it. The guy that always says, super guy, you're a super guy, you're a super guy from Minneapolis.
Richards?
Carl Pearson. So we had 2 rehearsals.
3-fingered Carl.
And I said, I think I got a better tenor than Carl. So Carl was replaced by Keith Franzen. That was 1973, and that was the talk of the town. In '76, we won the district, and we were able to sing in international 5 different times. That was '73 to '78. In '79, Greg Volk became our first replacement baritone when Jim Hall decided not to sing anymore. So Greg was that for '79. Then Greg went away to school at Stanford, and Charlie Green became our baritone in '80. And then in '82, we changed tenors. Keith went to sing with the Night Owls, and Roger Williams became our tenor. And then Rod Johnson, in his infinite mercy, switched Charlie and I apart. So I became the new baritone, and Charlie Green became our lead. And that worked all right. We did qualify for international one time as that setting, and that was in 1984. And then that was the end of that quartet. In 1985, I replaced their lead, the Front Porch Harmony, and that was Bob Brutzman, Doug Miller, and Mark Conlon. And I don't remember the lead's name. He was the guy that did craft fairs all summer long and never had time to practice. Tall, blonde guy. Anybody remember that guy's name? I don't think he was a chapter member. He was just a quartet man. So that was Brutzman, Miller, and Conlon. Then we sang for a couple of years, and then I decided that wasn't so good for me, so I got out of that quartet. And then I went in a quartet called River City Exchange. That quartet was Front Porch. Then I went in a quartet, 87, 89, River City Exchange. And that was Keith Franzen, Chuck Brixton, Dan Slattery, and I was singing baritone in that quartet. Well, Dan couldn't remember enough words to keep a show going, so that quartet, we did compete once, but that was the end of that one. Then in '89, Crossroads of Harmony was formed, and that was Chuck Brixton, Jim Hall, and Randy Leibel. So I got to sing in a quartet with, we competed 2 or 3 times in that one. Then I didn't sing in a quartet for a couple of years, and then I was fortunate enough to get in a quartet called the Good Time Gospel Quartet with Jerry Helgren, Steve Hardy, and Jim McCleary. Jim McCleary was a Commodore, and I had a wonderful time. We sang for 3 years, and we had our own sound system, Steve's sound system, and we sang with a Gaither tape, and it was really a fun experience. And Jim McCleary had a business over in Plymouth, and we always went there for rehearsal because he had a nice rooms for rehearsal and a place to keep the sound system and things like that. But we sang at a lot of churches. It was really fun. Then in '95, when that quartet was done, I sang in a quartet called Seems Like Old Times. and that was with Larry Avery, Jim Hall, and John Vaughn. And John Vaughn had come from Southwest District, and he had sung in a top 15 quartet with John Devine. So John Vaughn was a very accomplished bass, and he sang with GNU for a few years. We sang in one contest, a prelim, and finished 12th. And John Vaughn said, "That's enough of you guys." We weren't good enough for him by any means. We thought we were pretty good. And our quartet name was Seems Like Old Times, and that was one of the songs we competed with, Seems Like Old Times. So that was 1990. That was a short-lived quartet, and we competed. We rehearsed over in Woodbury at John Vaughn's house. He was a wonderful guy, and it was too bad it didn't go better. Then in '96, when I turned old enough, 3 guys from St. Croix Valley asked me to sing with them in a seniors quartet, and that was Tyler Smith, Bud Erdl, and Emery Nelson. And most of you know who Tyler Smith is. You may not know Bud and Emery, but they were the stalwarts of our St. Croix Valley chapter. And Bud was my mother's age. He was 20 years older than I was. So when we started singing together, he was 75. And I was, how old do you have to be a senior? 55. So I was 55, he was 75. And we won the district in '97 and '98 when you could still compete a couple of times as a senior. And then we went to Sacramento and Tampa and always finished somewhere out of the top 10 in those 2 contests. But we sang in 2 seniors international contests. Then in '07, I stayed with Season Sound up until 3 years ago. I guess we kept singing because we'd have different guys in the chorus that would join us. But then in '07, Matt Hall said, "Well, how about, it was an anniversary year for the Talk of the Town." So he said, "Why don't we try to get together and do something?" So Jim Hall, Matt Hall, Keith Franzen, and I then got back together as a Talk of the Town, and we sang for 3 more years, and we did 1 show, and we did a bunch of stuff together, and that was kind of fun. Then in '09, I got together with Lance Johnson and John, what was John's name, Lance? Our lead. Kalesha. John Kalesha and Chuck, I forgot I didn't write their names down. Chuck sings with Creanal Cabbage right now. McCowan. Chuck McCowan, Lance Johnson, and John Kalesha. John was a lead, but John was a Frank Sinatra lead. He scooped everything. He did everything he could. Everything he sang. So we had a hard time keeping in tune, or having chords ring. But we sang quite a bit, and we went down to Central States to qualify for our fall district. We went to Central States to qualify for seniors because I think we were old enough. I don't remember now. That was 10 years ago. '09, we sang for 3 years, and we did a lot of stuff around the Twin Cities. That was really fun, and that was called Turning Point. And then in '11, when Kalesha left, I slipped back from baritone to lead, and Jim Johansson joined us as a baritone, and we sang together till 2013. Then in 2014, I started River Chase, which is my current quartet I'm in, and that was with Chuck Brixton, Ron Bullard from St. Paul, and Brian Schultz, 2 of St. Croix Valley guys. And then Ron Bullard decided he had a better opportunity at St. Paul to sing with 3 really good singers. So he left us, and we got Mark Berglund, who was one of our guys in our chapter. And he's still singing with us now. Mark Berglund and Brixton and Brian Schultz and myself singing lead. So that's a lot of quartet history and a lot of names. So that's kind of where I've sit since '72 to today. One of my most cherished accomplishments is this trophy that I got. And this is the Dave LaBar Master of Ceremonies Award. And Dave LaBar was a chunky guy. Those of you that don't know who Dave, a lot of you know who Dave LaBar is. And when he'd be up emceeing, he'd say, "Can everybody see me now?" Because he started that. He was the first one to say that because he was a big boy. And you couldn't miss him. So they started giving this award after Dave died because they wanted to keep his going. And in 2012, I was given this award, and I had never emceed an international. And most of the guys that got this award were very funny, were Carl Handcuff. Those of you that remember Carl Handcuff, he was a funny guy. Jim Bagby, Ev Now, a lot of guys with a lot of moxie and a lot of good stuff, you know. So I was very honored to get this in 2012. So that's all I wanted to say, and you guys go ahead and eat. Anybody got any questions? Bob? Yeah.
So how many quartets?
I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, 15.
What's the longest period you ever were without a quartet?
Between Crossroads and the Good Time Gospel, 3 years probably. So, yeah. Well, it's the part of the hobby of the Society for the Preservation and Encouragement of Barbershop Quartet Singing that probably meant the most to me. Thank you.